This is the final word with Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins. And joining us today, having got out of Kabul last night, Shadi Khan Saif has landed safely, and it must have been a very eventful couple of days for you.
Yes, absolutely, Geoff. It was a roller coaster to say the least. We had at least four attempts at the airport just to get out, despite having a valid visa, passport, and all the reasons to escape the dangers that we were facing, the imminent threats. But still, I'm sure many of your viewers and yourself must have seen the chaotic and deadly images of the airport, the international airport, the only way out at the moment from war-torn Afghanistan. So last night was lucky night for me. After a couple of failed attempts, we made it out last night with a group of more than 100 journalists and their families and their relatives and their friends. All of them attempted these couple of failed attempts with us. We landed at the Islamabad airport, and the flight was not anywhere near a normal flight. They were, I mean, it was like I don't know how to explain. We just landed, and even the airport staff was surprised. They said, "Where did you guys come from? Where are your boarding passes?"
Hmm.
We had nothing, no boarding pass, no food on the plane. The toilet was in a mess because the plane was waiting for us. Our organization, Reuters, organized this evacuation. I'm really thankful to them. So yeah, then we came to our place. We had a rest of a few minutes, and here I am talking to you about the favorite sport, cricket in Afghanistan.
And it must be, I mean, it's an extraordinary thing that Reuters, as an employer, had to organise an evacuation flight and to organise this so quickly. Give us a sense of the last couple of weeks and just how much the world turned upside down so abruptly.
Well, right from the mid of August, the last day of the first week of August, there were speculations that the state structure, the government in Afghanistan was about to fall apart because the Taliban were advancing in a speed which was unprecedented. Nobody had a clue about it. So the deadline or the estimation that many people had in their mind was of a couple of weeks, sorry, a couple of months. That in a couple of months the Taliban will be in the city, and then they'll start to overrun it, either through negotiations or fighting it out with the government forces. But nothing like that happened. It all happened in a minute, in a matter of days. In on a Sunday, this Sunday, not this Sunday, the one before, the government just collapsed. The president left the country fearing for his life, and here we were with the Taliban ruling us within days. And what happened afterwards was even worse because people panicked, people frightened. They just rushed towards the airport, and the airport was there were no security forces there. The forces had either left the country or they just surrendered, fearing for their lives. And many people died. Some went on to sit on plane, hoping to escape in that deadly manner. They died. Unfortunately, that American military plane took off with all those people sitting on its wings and all over it, and and things never improved. Things has not improved yet. Situation has is still very tense. People are in the same mood. They want to flee the country. Those fearing for their lives and their liberties, they are fleeing it. The Taliban have brought some order at the airport with the Americans and all the NATO allies, but people's sense of anxiety has not improved. They are in a desperate rush to leave, and has been causing a deadlock, a bottleneck at all the entrance points of the airport, forcing people with documents and legitimate paperwork to wait anxiously for days. Our turn just came last night after a wait of 10 hours right at the road in our buses. We just stayed in our bus for at least 10 hours. And this is after the three failed attempts that we were given an entry through a lengthy negotiations of days. So that's what I mean. I can explain at the moment.
Yeah, in the context of such a desperate situation, it feels almost glib to want to talk to you about cricket, but on the basis that you write for the Wisden Cricketers Almanac and report on Afghanistan cricket, I think there's been a lot of interest around the global game about what this will mean for Afghanistan and the game that is the number one sport in the country. It's such an amazing, remarkable story, which has been documented through various films that have been made and pieces that have been written. And of course, Afghanistan rising to test status in 2017 was so widely celebrated. But now we've already seen one tour cancelled. They won't be playing Pakistan next month. The statement that went out this afternoon that made it clear that the players wouldn't be in a fit state to participate, and also getting into Sri Lanka to play Pakistan wasn't going to be possible. We've seen a change in chairman yesterday. Azizullah Fazli has been brought back into the role. Of course, he was knocked off at the end of 2019 after the failed World Cup. A lot of issues there internally, but he's now been brought back in keeping with the wishes of the Taliban, who are now overseeing much of this. I mean, can you give a bit of a sense of just how acute the challenges are going to be for Afghanistan cricket in the short term?
Well, the interesting bit here is that the interest among common people for this beautiful game has not dropped. It is the public interest, it is the enthusiasm amongst all Afghans of all ages, young and old. They love the game. They've simply fallen in love with the game, and that's what is driving the success. The administration before the recent changes, and even before that, right from the beginning, was never perfect. They always had issues with issues you can expect in a place like Afghanistan. But the success never reversed. Why? Because the interest is there. That is generating talent. Rashid Khan is phenomenal. The whole world knows him. Mohammad Nabi, you name them. There are a bunch of more stars coming because the interest is there. People love the game. There's a passion. They follow all commercial leagues played all over the globe. That is what is driving the success of Afghanistan cricket. It has, I would dare to say that it has nothing to do with the administration, good or bad, of the Afghanistan Cricket Board. It's the simple raw talent, the interest, the enthusiasm that is driving the success, and it is still there. I hope it never reverses with the way things are heading, but I don't see any imminent threats to that enthusiasm going down. But administration, of course, it plays a part when you have all the funds and all the resources to control the domestic system and the international engagements and selection and patronage of the players and promoting young talent. That does play a part. I'm not ruling it out, but the basic reason so far for the success has been the interest among people.
The relationship between the Taliban and cricket will be, I suppose, interesting is an understatement to see how it plays out, because 20 plus years ago, the Taliban generally seemed to have quite a lot of antipathy towards cricket. They generally regarded it as a Western incursion that should be resisted. More recently, even in the last few years, there have been bombings at cricket matches and so on. Do you expect there will be more support from the Taliban now for cricket, given that it's become so popular in the country in the last 20 years, that trying to shut it down might cause them to have troubles in trying to establish their dominance running the country?
Well, I'll tell you a very interesting thing. I think they will try desperately to promote. Why? Because you pointed that and then appointed the central bank UK are giving it that top priority. And, the men team, perhaps the efforts to come up with a women's team might see some problems, and I think it's that project, that initiative, I think, is simply dead. But as far as the men's cricket is concerned, I think the Taliban would they would try very hard to promote it and keep people engaged, and hopefully they will not do something silly with it.
Yeah, what strikes me is that there was so much positive momentum over the last few years. You raised the example of women's cricket. Just last year, 25 central contracts were given out to Afghanistan women for the first time, and there was that big camp they held before that to find this talent. There was, and that's just on women's cricket alone. Imran Khan, when he visited from Pakistan, talking about the potential for bilateral tours into Afghanistan and playing in Pakistan. I mean, there was so much cause for enthusiasm about what might be possible in the short term, in terms of what might be achievable in the next 5 years, which all seems to now be on pause. Do you think that, and Geoff's question pointed to this, but now with the Taliban back in charge, that it'll be far more about taking stock and making sure the show kind of stays on the road rather than being necessarily ambitious about what might be possible in the short term?
Well, as I said, replying to the earlier question, I think they would, and they've already shown some signs about it. They would really try to promote the game. They would honestly try to promote the game. But the appointment of the new governor, the new guy, was there when Afghanistan saw its biggest disaster in its international cricket so far. Afghanistan was doing so well before the World Cup. People were considering it as an underdog with the potential to do great, but nothing happened. Afghanistan performed very well, but it lost most of its matches. And just before the World Cup, the controversial replacement of the captain, and the blunders with the selection. That is, to me, so far the biggest setback that the game of cricket has seen in Afghanistan. I saw many diehard cricket fans give up on sports. They said their hearts are broken because of what the cricket board did with the team just days before the World Cup. They were rebellion in the team. They were, if I'm not wrong, the newly appointed chairman. So on one side, I'm positive that the Taliban will try to promote the game, but the appointment of the new chairman looks like a very strange decision to me.
In terms of the Taliban promoting the game, is that mostly going to be about trying to use an international cricket team as a way to legitimize themselves as a government?
Well, I think that would be too ambitious. I think I don't see any prospects for that in the short term, because that can't be that way. It has to be the other way. They first have to get the international recognition, and then they can invite and host international teams. They can't do it the other way by inviting foreign teams and then seeking recognition. But I think in terms of their domestic support, they need something positive to give it to the community. They need to show that they are not the Taliban of the past. They are not just about praying and all these religious aspects of their ideology. They would desperately want to show to the nation domestically, to convince the local population, to influence them that they want life to move on with some level of continuation of the past 20 years or so. And cricket is a major part of that experience that Afghans had in the past 20 years of relative peace.
So a lot of what you've written about and the work that you've done has been about the place of women in society in Afghanistan, the likelihood of repression coming back. You were writing only recently about repressive measures being taken against women under the previous regime that's just been swept away. And obviously that's the major point of concern for everybody looking at what might happen in the country over the next few months and then into the next couple of years. The position of women's cricket, Afghanistan didn't even have an international women's team playing under the previous administration. And as you say, the chances of that happening under a religious administration are very bleak. Where do you see this going over, say, the medium term of the next few years?
Well, I told you, I see prospects of that simply dead. When I used to speak with players, with officials under the previous administration, they were struggling very hard to convince people within the board, and they were fearful of going ahead with this idea. And that was despite the fact that Afghanistan was having a females football team. Afghanistan was having women in many other sports. But the problem with the cricket was that it was unable, because the scale of the game and the people following it was all over the country. It was not limited to few urban centers like football. In terms of international teams, that is what I'm talking about. So they were fearful of a backlash. They couldn't dare to come up, prepare a team and launch it and send them to an international events or so. The best they could do was sign contracts with a few daring young girls who were willing to risk it because of their interest in the game, and they couldn't move ahead with that. So with the Taliban coming to power, I simply see that project done and dusted.
The women who have signed those contracts and who were playing up until recently, do you think that there's a likelihood of reprisals against them or their families? Do you think they'll be in danger for having been associated with playing professional sport recently?
Well, I hope not. I hope not. I desperately hope not. And that is something that we have to see. And that's, I think it's a matter of concern. And it might get dangerous for them if they try to go ahead with it. But I don't see any prospect for that, because Afghanistan does not have facilities where they can go and play on their own. They were playing in the facilities of the cricket board, inside the arenas of the cricket board. So if officially those doors are closed for them, they have no way to go and express their interest.
Yep. And the reporting on the Afghanistan team, especially in the last, say, 2 or 3 years, it's all been about the positives. It's all been upbeat. It's been talking about the growth of the current men's team, of their potential into the future. The Taliban hasn't been mentioned even as a possible threat in any of the cricket reporting in the last few years. Do you think were we naive not to imagine that they might be returning to power at some point, given how tenacious they've been in keeping themselves around as a possibility to move in whenever the Americans moved out? Was that foolish of cricket to be looking at the optimistic side constantly and not considering the alternative?
Well, that's the thing with the cricket. There are many other simple stories. Take the example of rivalry between India and Pakistan. It always infringes into the arena of cricket. In Afghanistan, there were very focused efforts, and they still are, to keep the sports away from politics. The imminent threat of the Taliban takeover was always there, and people were fearful about it, even in the cricket board. But they never framed it, and they don't see it as a direct threat to the game or to the cricket board. That's what I think has kept it safe so far. And the other thing is that it's a game that is loved by the nation. So I don't see any reason for the Taliban to be naive enough to go and counter it. And I don't see any incentives for them. The only problem they might have with cricket is the female team. They, I think, would have and might have no problem with the men's team. As I said, they would instead like to promote it for their domestic popularity. And other than that, I don't see any very, I mean, yes, but again, I would down to the appointment of the new chairman. If the board gets politicized, see, I'm referring to the administrative and the political aspects of it, not the military aspect of the Taliban. If the Taliban overlook the administrative aspect of it, the political aspects of it, and then the new leadership of the board stops making foolish decisions, that is something that can cause great harm to cricket in Afghanistan, not the military aspects of the Taliban.
Shadi Khan Saif, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're very glad that you've managed to make it out safely after what must have been a pretty terrifying few days.
Thank you very much. Glad to be with you.